It's not luck, not intelligence, not degrees. It's the way you start your morning. Something so small it's often overlooked, that quietly rewrites the entire trajectory of your life. No one notices it until it's too late. When mornings are swallowed up by phones, by meaningless conversations, by waking up without any sense of purpose, they begin to multiply, reprogram the brain, erode your ability to choose, and kill your inner leadership. You don't fall into a mediocre life overnight. You lose it, one morning at a time. Every morning you let the world carry you away. You're no longer the driver. You're being driven. There's a bitter truth few dare to face. If you don't decide how your day begins, the world will do it for you in a way that benefits it, not you. You're not stuck because you lack talent. You're stuck because life has pushed you into a cycle of reactivity. Waking up to an alarm, opening your eyes to pressure, letting emails, messages, news dictate your emotional state. The problem isn't those things. The problem is starting your day with no internal direction, and when you don't have a direction, you can't live with intention. You exist merely to meet other people's expectations. Successful people don't have more hours in a day. They weren't born with more ideas than you. They differ in one thing. They treat the morning as a sacred part of their personal evolution. They don't let the world touch them before they've touched their own minds. They don't reach for the phone before reaching for awareness. They know that from the very first second of opening their eyes, they're standing at a crossroads, to be the master or the slave. And they choose to be the master. They choose to wake up with intention. Not I have to, but I choose to. You think this is small, insignificant? Think back to all the mornings you mindlessly scrolled through headlines, lay in bed another 15 minutes, postponed getting up. Every one of those actions, however tiny, sent a clear signal to your brain: we're not in control. And once that becomes the default, everything else, your work, your goals, your relationships, begins from a place of weakness. You start your day passively, and slowly you begin to build a passive life. Now imagine the opposite. You open your eyes and you don't react. You lead. You don't reach for your phone. You don't allow noise to enter your mind. Instead, you take a few minutes to breathe, to remind yourself why you're alive, what you're fighting for, and where you're going. You don't need an hour of meditation. You just need a moment of clarity that you're powering yourself up, not to survive, but to create impact. Every morning is a new operating system, and you are the programmer. The question isn't, what time do you wake up, but why do you wake up? That's the real beginning, because how you start your day will influence every choice that follows. If you start with focus, courage, and clarity, you will carry those traits into your work, your relationships, and every step toward your goals. On the other hand, if you start with delay, distraction, and passivity, you'll repeat that pattern all day long. Don't underestimate that brief moment when you first wake up. That moment is a doorway, and you either walk through it into a stronger version of yourself, or you let it close and fall back into the worn-out, depleted, directionless version. Every morning you wake up, you're not just waking up to the world, you're waking up to yourself. And the question is, are you still the one driving your life? Starting tomorrow morning, don't let anyone else answer that question for you. Every morning you open your eyes, you're not just waking up, you're logging into an operating system. The question is, was that system written by you or assigned to you by the world? It's rarely spoken aloud, but most people live like victims. Victims of old habits, of news feeds, of unread emails, of unresolved emotions from the day before. They don't realize that the very moment they jump out of bed and dive straight into the chaos, they're locking themselves into a passive state. Every action that follows, replying to messages, chasing work, reacting to unexpected things, comes from a mind that lacks direction. And they end their day feeling swept away, as if life is no longer in their hands. In truth, it's not as if it is that way. The first habit after waking up is not just an action, it's a signal you send your brain to determine who's in control of the system. If the first thing you do is open your phone and read the news, you're telling yourself the world is more important than my thinking. If you turn on the TV and let someone else fill your head with events, drama, and crises, you're agreeing that the chaos outside has the right to dictate your inner emotion. And if that's how you start each day, you can't blame anyone for why you feel lost, emotionally volatile, and constantly exhausted even though you haven't accomplished much. You weren't born to react, you were born to lead, but no one can lead others without first learning to lead themselves. The operating system you build each morning is the internal interface between you and the world. It decides whether you'll step out as someone with standards or someone who gets triggered by every little thing. It determines whether you'll approach the day with a clear goal or merely survive hour by hour. Successful people don't wait for everything to be perfect before they focus. They program their focus in advance by guarding their mornings like a fortress. No one is allowed in until their internal system is ready. What's sad is that most people program nothing at all. They just wake up and go. And they don't realize that this waking up is an unsecured login. They let everything rush in. Negative emotions, unresolved pressures, the desires of others, like opening your front door and inviting in total strangers just because you were too lazy to lock it. Worse, they think this is normal. They believe living that way is just how life is. But it's exactly that assumption that has misprogrammed them for years without even knowing it. To take control of your life, you must first take control of the first 10 minutes of your morning. It doesn't need to be complicated. No need to meditate for 30 minutes or read 20 pages of a book. Just reboot the system, meaning don't touch your phone, don't let anyone access you. Before you access your own mind, no music, no scrolling, just you and the alertness of someone about to rewrite the operating system for a brand new day. Ask yourself, today, which version of me will run this system? One better than yesterday or one stuck on repeat? If you're thinking, it's just 10 minutes, what difference could it make? Then understand this, every operating system starts with a single line of code. And if that first line is wrong, the entire system shifts, not by a little, but by a lot. The first 10 minutes of your day are the code that shapes your mental state, your thinking capacity, and your decision-making power for the next 14 to 16 hours. And you hold the power to write it every single morning. Don't wait until life feels easier to start changing. Change first so life becomes easier. Don't live like a victim, being programmed by the environment. Become the programmer of yourself. It all begins with one small but incredibly powerful decision to program your morning operating system. Your way, no one else's. There's a simple principle that most of the world ignores. If you don't dare to face discomfort at the start of your day, you'll be overwhelmed by chaos at the end of it. Comfort is a dull blade. It won't kill you instantly, but it will slowly numb you piece by piece. On the other hand, difficulty, when chosen intentionally, becomes the sharpest weapon to refine your thinking, your spirit, and your inner strength. That's why I want you to start each morning with one hard thing. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to be genuinely hard for you. Hard enough to resist procrastination, hard enough for your brain to say, let's do it later. That exact moment is when you step into the battlefield. Not with the world, but with yourself. Doing one hard thing in the morning is how you declare to yourself, I don't run from pressure, I step into it, to train myself. It's not just an action, it's an identity statement. You might choose to write a journal page while your mind is still foggy. You might take a cold shower when your body just wants to stay still. You might run a few laps while it's still dark outside, or simply refuse the habit of scrolling your phone and instead confront the discomfort of silence. Whatever it is, what matters isn't what you do, but who you become through that act. Why did the hard thing in the morning? Because that's when your willpower is still intact. It's the purest window of the day, the one time when you can make a decision without needing anyone's permission. And because when you complete a difficult task right from the start, you release a very specific kind of energy, earned confidence. Not the hollow confidence that comes from praise, but the quiet kind that comes from control. You begin the day with a victory, not a victory over others, but over yourself, the most sustainable kind of win. Many people think they need inspiration to have a productive day. But inspiration is not the starting point, it's the outcome. The result of taking action, even when you don't feel like it. The most successful people you know don't wake up in a perfect mood. They feel tired too, they feel bored too, they hear the same voice in their head whispering, delay. The only difference is they act first and let the feelings follow. And the surprising truth is, when you do the thing you don't want to do, you reclaim your power. Laziness starts to go quiet, procrastination begins to back off. You don't just get things done, you start to feel capable of doing anything. The power of doing one hard thing each morning doesn't lie in its length or complexity, it lies in its meaning. You can choose something that takes just 5 minutes, But if it forces you to push through internal resistance, if it makes you step outside your comfort zone, then that act is powerful enough to shape the rest of your day. Your brain logs that signal and adjusts its programming. I am someone who can do hard things. From then on, when you face challenges throughout the day, you don't approach them from a place of fear, you approach them from a place of readiness. The reason so many people feel powerless is not because they're weak, it's because they don't train strength. Every morning they choose the easy path, they choose delay, they choose to ignore, they postpone action with a vague promise of I'll do it later, but it's that exact delay that erodes self-trust. Every time you say later and don't follow through, you're teaching yourself that your word carries no weight. On the flip side, when you choose the hard thing and complete it right away, you're affirming what I say, I do. What I think, I act on. I'm not asking you to do something extraordinary. I'm only asking you to choose one courageous action to start your day. That action can be small. But if you do it every morning, consistently, with discipline, you will not be the same person in a few weeks. You will be stronger, sharper, more alert, and most importantly, you will become the kind of person hardship cannot control because you stepped into it by choice before the world forced it upon you. Choose the hard thing, do it first, do it fully, don't delay. Because every morning you face what you want to avoid is a morning you train yourself to become unstoppable. People often admire strength through physique, endurance, or achievements. But real strength doesn't begin with muscle. It begins with the system of habits you repeat every single day, especially when no one is watching. Those quiet, unseen routines are what shape who you become when pressure hits. The body can be trained into fitness, but the will can only be forged through repeated discipline. That's why I tell you, don't overrate momentary motivation, underrate it, and then focus on what truly determines resilience, habits. Most people aren't lacking strength, they're lacking structure. They act on inspiration, and when the inspiration fades, everything collapses. They've tried to change. They've made plans. They've had mornings filled with determination, but then they fall back into old cycles because they never realized that strength is not an event, it's a system. And that system is built from habits. The things you do each morning when no one's pushing you, the repetitive actions with no audience, no applause. That's where strength begins to form. The question isn't whether you have enough motivation. The question is whether you have enough structure to act without motivation. You can wake up feeling tired, uninspired, even discouraged, and that's okay. But if you still do what needs to be done, even when your mood doesn't cooperate, that's the mark of real strength. Because at that moment, you're no longer driven by emotion. You let action lead emotion. And the person who can do that day after day will outpace 90% of the world who's just waiting to feel ready. You don't need to do many things to become strong. You just need to repeat the right ones every day. Strength isn't born from one heroic effort. It comes from the sustainable repetition of simple but correct actions. Drinking water on time, writing down your goals every morning, reading 10 pages even when your mind is foggy, focusing for 25 minutes before opening social media. Each of these habits may seem small, but they are laying a solid foundation for a stronger version of you. And here's the truth, you won't feel that strength immediately. That's why most people quit, because they don't see results right away. But you need to understand habits are a long-term investment. No one sees the value of a single brick, but when you place 300 bricks every morning, you'll be standing inside a structure no one else could build, because no one else had your patience. The greatest strength is when you don't need to prove anything, you simply act and let the results speak for themselves. Every good habit you build is a unit of confidence you accumulate, not confidence borrowed from others, but true confidence, because you know exactly who you're becoming. You don't need praise, you don't need reminders, you just need to look at your morning and know that you're programming yourself not to collapse when pressure arrives, because you've trained for discipline, you've practiced doing what's necessary without being pushed, you've developed inner muscles, the kind no one sees, but everyone feels when you walk into the room. This world has too many smart people, too many talented people who accomplish nothing simply because they can't maintain a chain of basic habits. They draw out beautiful goals, but their daily routines completely contradict the places they say they want to go. They say they want discipline, but every morning begins with a negotiation with their bed. They say they want peace, but never establish a quiet morning. They want health, but won't give themselves 10 minutes of movement each day. And so, the dream remains a dream. If you're serious about your goal, don't wait until you have more time. Reprogram every hour. Don't wish for more willpower. Rebuild your habit system. Don't expect a better version of yourself to show up if you don't change your current habits. Strength isn't something you wait for, it's something you create by repeating the right things, no matter how small, without stopping. Results only come after action, and action only lasts when it becomes habit. Starting tomorrow morning, stop asking, do I have enough energy? Start asking, is this habit taking me in the right direction? Because in the end, your body will age, your motivation will fluctuate, but the system you've built will remain like a backbone for a life that nothing can break. And it's from there that true strength begins. You cannot think clearly in a sluggish body. You cannot generate positive energy if your body is trapped in a state of laziness, slouched, shallow breathing, inactive. And you certainly can't manage your emotions if even your heartbeat, your steps, or your breathing aren't under your control. This isn't philosophy, it's basic biology. Your body is the master switch for your brain. Want to feel alert? Move. Want clarity? Breathe deeply. Want to break through lethargy or dullness? Act first. Thought will follow. There's a paradox many people fall into. They wait until they have energy before they move. Wait until they feel strong before they exercise. Wait until they feel ready before doing the right thing. But that logic is backward. Energy doesn't arrive on its own. It's triggered through your own action. And morning is when you need that action the most. When your body is still foggy, your mind half asleep, your entire system still in standby mode. If you remain idle, that sluggish state lingers. But if you use your body to proactively awaken the entire system, you switch your brain into command mode, not reaction mode. Look at the reality: a slouched posture, dull eyes, heavy steps. These are not just signs of fatigue. They are silent commands to your brain that say, we're weak. And instantly your perception begins to shrink. You get irritated more easily, you react more negatively, you start to retreat and lose internal control. Not because something terrible happened, but because your body is sending the wrong signals. And if you don't reverse those signals, your brain will keep following that downward path all day long. On the other hand, when you choose to activate your body right after waking up, you're sending an entirely different message. We're proactive, we're in control. We don't wait for inspiration, we create it. You don't need a full workout, a smartwatch, or a gym. You just need to move. Walk outside for 10 minutes. Stretch for a few minutes in natural light. Stand up. Straighten your back. Take a deep breath. Now, these seemingly small actions have enormous physiological effects on your nervous system. They awaken your circulation, send oxygen to your brain, stabilize hormones, and most importantly, pull you out of a passive state. The difference between an average day and a great one doesn't lie in how many hours you have. It lies in the state you bring into it. And that state doesn't come from thinking harder, it comes from moving smarter. Act first and thinking will follow. This is the strategy of winners. They don't wait to feel ready, they push themselves into motion and use the energy generated by action to keep going. If your mind feels scattered, if you can't concentrate, if your emotions are constantly shifting, don't go searching for answers in your head. Return to the body. It's the most accessible place to reclaim control. Every time you stand tall, you're saying, I choose strength. Every time you walk faster, you're saying, I refuse to delay. Every time you control your breath, you're declaring, I'm the driver, not the passenger. You don't need to feel strong to act like someone strong. You just need to choose the right movement. Because emotion is a result, belief is a result, peak state is a result, and it all begins when you treat your body as the control device it is, not just a lump of flesh you drag through the day. Successful people aren't necessarily stronger than you. They just know how to use their body as a conductor for their thinking. They walk with pace, speak with certainty, breathe with depth. Not because they always feel confident, but because they know behavior generates state, and state is the foundation for every high-quality action. Starting tomorrow morning, don't lie still and wait for feelings to lead the way. Stand up, activate the system. Your body is the switch, and once you flip it the right way, your entire brain will do the rest. You won't just feel better, you'll become better, simply by choosing the right movement at the right time the moment you wake up. Morning is the only moment in the day when the world hasn't touched you yet. It's pure, quiet, and untainted by outside information, emotions, or pressure. But sadly, most people waste that opportunity. They wake up and immediately turn on their phones. They check messages, emails, social media, and within minutes their minds, in their most delicate and programmable state, become flooded with the noise of the world. Before they even remember who they are, they're swept away by what others want them to think, feel, and do. No one tells you this, but that's how you lose yourself, by starting your day receiving instead of defining. You receive information, absorb worries, internalize other people's opinions, and then you go through your entire day under the influence of all those things without even realizing it. Worse, you think those are your own thoughts, but they're not. They were implanted too early, before you had the chance to lock the door to your mind. And once someone else defines your mental state in the morning, it becomes very difficult to regain control for the rest of the day. The human mind, after waking up, is like an uncultivated field. It's highly receptive, easily shaped, ready to absorb. And like any piece of land, if you don't intentionally plant good seeds, weeds will grow. Those weeds are negative news, online drama, work emails, financial stress, subconscious comparisons from scrolling. They don't come from malice, they come from a lack of intentional choice. You didn't choose, so the world chose for you. You didn't lead, so the world led. And when you let that happen every morning, you're no longer living your life, you're being silently directed by others. You can't control everything that happens during the day, but you can absolutely control what enters your mind first thing in the morning. And that matters more than you think. It's the first step to redefining who you are. Not the you from yesterday, not the you from your mistakes, but the present you, the one who can reboot the entire system if you start the day the right way. But to do that, you need a clear principle. I won't let anyone tell me who I am until I've told myself first. This doesn't require waking up at 4 a.m. or becoming a monk. It only requires one disciplined decision. Keep your mind free of all external input for the first 10 to 15 minutes of your day. No phone, no email, no news, no conversations, just you. And the awareness that you're about to enter the day as the most alert, intentional version of yourself. You can use that time to write, or to take deep breaths, or simply to sit and ask, what energy do I want to bring into the world today? That question alone shifts the direction of your thoughts. You're no longer a passive receiver of whatever comes your way, you become a creator. And through that one simple act, you begin to reprogram the way you operate, not just for the morning, but for your entire life. Successful people don't have more hours than you. They simply protect their right to control their minds before handing them over to the world. They build a mental foundation before stepping into chaos. They define themselves before being pulled into endless social roles, employee, parent, partner, friend. Because they know that if they don't define themselves from within, they'll always be chasing the expectations of others and losing bits of their identity along the way. Starting tomorrow, begin with protection. Protect the uninvaded moment. Protect the untouched silence. Carve out a space. It doesn't have to be ideal, just consistent, where you meet yourself, redefine yourself, and decide what deserves to enter your mind first. Not because you're arrogant, but because you understand one powerful truth. If you don't set your internal state, you'll always live as a reaction to the world instead of becoming the architect of the life you truly want. The world can take everything from you, your possessions, your job, your relationships, but it cannot take away what you've deeply understood about yourself. And nothing helps you understand yourself faster and clearer than writing it down. It doesn't have to be well written, it doesn't have to be grammatically correct, it just has to be honest. Every morning, before anyone else interferes with your mind, let you be the first to put words on the page. Because thoughts left unwritten are smoke, but thoughts written down, even messy, even clumsy, are a map. You don't need to be a writer, but you do need a notebook, a pen, and 5 brave minutes to be honest about what's really going on inside you. Because if you don't write it down, you don't really know what you're thinking. Everything remains vague feelings, tired, pressured, lost. But when you force your mind to turn those feelings into words, you force yourself to think all the way through, you can't write vaguely. Either get clear or confront the chaos you're carrying. Either way, it leads to awareness. And that's where change begins. There are things you think you understand, but it's only when you write them down that you realize you've never truly gone deep. There are things you think you fear, but they turn out to be nothing more than a lack of information. There are goals you think are grand, but when written out clearly, they begin to take shape as actionable plans. Because writing doesn't let you hide. It shines a light on everything that's been buried in your mind. It's how you have a real conversation with yourself, no explanations, no pretending. Writing is how you document the inner territory no one else can see. It's like shining a flashlight into a dark room in your head, a room that, if left unlit, will soon be occupied by anxiety, expectation, and outside chaos. Because what isn't written down gets forgotten, and what isn't named gets distorted. Many people feel lost not because they lack direction, but because they've never written it down. They carry hundreds of thoughts in their head, but no map to know where they are, where they're going. You can't build a building just by imagining it. You need blueprints. The mind is no different. Without a plan, you'll keep getting tossed around between emotion and reaction. But when you write, you create structure. A simple paragraph can become a commitment. A single note can become a roadmap. A page in your notebook can turn into a promise to yourself. One that, when repeated often enough, forms the habits that shape who you become. The world doesn't need you to write to post, to impress, to be praised. The world needs you to write to remember, to preserve, to be real. Because no focus can be sustained if you don't have a place to store what you're thinking. And you can't build clarity if you let everything float endlessly in your head. The mind needs tidying, and writing is how you clean each corner. Not to make it look neat, but to make room for deeper thinking to emerge. A person who doesn't write doesn't do so because they can't, but because they've never realized. Writing is a tool for transforming consciousness. Want to change your thinking? Write down the old, then write the new. Want to build a leader's mindset? Record decisions, analyze reasons, track consequences. Want to manage your emotions? Write about them. Don't store them in your head. Your mind is for generating ideas, not for holding everything. Let the paper carry the rest. Don't underestimate the power of a morning notebook. Even if you write only a few lines, your goal, your worry, your gratitude, or your inner conflict, that single act is already helping you reclaim inner control. And the best part is, you don't have to feel ready to begin. You just have to sit down, open your notebook, and write the first line. The rest will find its way. Because when you write, you shift from passive to active, from vague to specific, from thought to form. Don't let a single day go by without recording at least one thing worth remembering. Not because you're afraid of forgetting, but because you're practicing a life-saving skill, thinking in ink. That kind of thinking doesn't get erased by fleeting emotions, doesn't get drowned out by headlines. It stays as a quiet reminder that you are waking up, one line at a time. There's a dangerous misunderstanding about gratitude, that it's a soft emotion reserved for people who live slowly, lightly, or passively. In reality, it's the opposite. Gratitude doesn't make you weak. It makes you steadier, sharper, and clearer. In a world that's loud, competitive, and constantly drowning you in everything you don't have, gratitude is your inner immune system, protecting you from losing yourself on the way forward. It doesn't reduce ambition, it gives ambition depth. And not a hunger to fill a void, but a drive to fully express a soul that already feels whole. People don't get tired because they do too much. They get tired because of the constant feeling of lack. Lack of time, lack of energy, lack of money, lack of recognition, lack of someone who understands them. But most of these feelings of lack are simply the product of a mind that has forgotten what it already has. You cannot feel the value of the present if you start every morning diving straight into comparison. You will never feel enough if you never stop to look around and acknowledge what's already in your hands, even the smallest things. Practicing gratitude is how you pull yourself out of the spiral of powerlessness. You cannot build inner strength from a place of resentment. A mind full of complaints has no space for clarity. A heart tangled in envy has no energy left to create. But when you start your morning by naming 3 things you're grateful for, you're not just creating positive emotions, you're restructuring your perception. You're choosing to see life from the lens of someone who has, not someone who always lacks. And that is the posture of a creator. You don't need to be perfect to be grateful. You just need to be honest. Take a deep breath and realize that being alive is already a gift. That the fact you're reading these words means you're still learning, and that's an opportunity. That having a goal in your mind, something you long to figure out, means there's still fire inside you, and that's something not everyone still holds. Gratitude doesn't ask you to pretend everything is fine. It simply asks you to look at reality with fairness, that among all the things that aren't ideal, there are still forces quietly working in your favor. Practicing gratitude every morning is a strategic psychological exercise, not to settle for the present, but to keep your mind in the right state of balance. When you start your day by recognizing the good, you create an emotional anchor. The challenges of the day will still come, but you won't be swept away by them because you have roots. A person with roots won't be easily uprooted by any wind, no matter how strong. Gratitude is those roots, seemingly light, but grounding you in every storm. Let it be clear, gratitude is not a way to avoid reality. It's a way to face reality with a stronger mental structure. Grateful people aren't grateful because they have nothing to complain about. They simply choose not to let those things define the whole picture. They have the clarity to say, I'm missing this, but I still have that. And from that place of balance, they move forward, not with a victim's mindset, but with the posture of someone in charge. Every morning you can choose to complain or to be grateful. You can focus on what's missing or on what exists, and that choice will reshape how you interact with the world. A grateful person speaks differently. They don't use their words to diminish, to escape, or to blame. They use their words to empower, to connect, and to reinforce what's good. Not because they're blindly optimistic, but because they know that how they see the world will determine how the world responds. Starting tomorrow, place your hand on your chest every morning, close your eyes, and name 3 things you're grateful for. Write them down, say them out loud, feel them with your heart. They can be simple: a deep sleep, a warm cup of tea, a friend who still cares about you, or just the sunlight through your window. The moment you name it, you activate a different part of your mind, the part not governed by lack, but driven by fullness. Gratitude doesn't slow you down, it helps you go further. But with your head held high, your heart steady, and your mind clear, and in a world where everyone is pushing and posturing to prove something, you'll stand out, not because you're less ambitious, but because your ambition is built on a foundation strong enough not to be swept away. Everyone has a list, a to-do list, a list of unfinished tasks, a list of appointments, emails, messages, responsibilities, deadlines. The problem is, the more lists you have, the less focus you get. Not because you're lazy, but because you're directionless. Every morning you wake up and face a series of things waiting for you. Your heart rate rises, your mind scatters, your emotions tangle. You haven't even done anything yet, but you already feel defeated. Not because there's too much to do, but because you have no clear focal point. You can't do everything in one day, and you don't need to. What you really need is one clear goal, clear enough to guide your direction, simple enough to sustain your energy, and important enough to make your day feel meaningful. One single goal. Not to limit you, but to free you from the chaos. Because when you don't choose, the world will choose for you. When you don't prioritize, everything becomes a priority. And when that happens, nothing truly gets done, only the illusion of busyness repeated day after day. The modern world equates being busy with being productive, but the truth is, movement is not progress. You can work non-stop all day and still be no closer to your goal, like someone paddling a boat in the middle of the ocean. Arms flailing, constantly moving, but without direction. They're tired, they're sweating, they look like they're trying, but they're just spinning in place. That's how most people live, chasing dozens of small tasks without knowing which one actually moves the needle. You don't need to do more, you need to do right. And to do right, you must start every morning with one question. What one task, if completed today, would make me feel proud by the end of the day? That's the task that cannot be replaced. The task that, if postponed, will leave you feeling empty, even if you finish a dozen others. Once you choose that task, write it down, circle it, stare at it, and commit to yourself. If I complete only this one thing today, I'm still moving in the right direction. The hard part isn't about lacking choices, it's about not daring to eliminate. You fear that if you don't do everything, you'll fall behind, be judged, miss something important. But the truth is, successful people don't do more than you, they just eliminate more. They're not slaves to busyness. They don't let a long list blur their core values. They start their day with one key focus and pour all their energy into completing it with the highest quality possible. The reason you feel lost isn't because you lack time, it's because your time is fragmented into tiny pieces. You reply to an email, then jump to a message, then check social media, then handle a household task, then think about a pending plan. Each segment takes only minutes, but after a few hours you've mastered nothing. That feeling isn't just stressful, it's paralyzing, because you start to doubt yourself. Why do I work all day but feel nothing? The answer is simple. You didn't have one complete, meaningful goal. Once you choose that one daily goal, you don't just have direction, you have a standard. That standard helps you make decisions faster. It helps you say no more easily to unimportant things. It protects your energy from being drained by easy but pointless tasks. And most importantly, it gives you the feeling of winning. That feeling is your engine, your fuel, the reason you'll maintain discipline tomorrow. Because everyone needs to feel progress to stay motivated. And nothing drives progress more powerfully than a clearly defined win. Starting tomorrow, instead of staring at a long, overwhelming list, look at yourself and ask, what one thing, if completed today, will bring me closer to the person I want to become? Just one thing, one clear choice, one goal that carries real weight. You don't need to do 10 things, you just need to win one important thing each day. And if you do that long enough, no reminders needed, you'll look back and realize you're no longer who you used to be. Not because you did more, but because you did better. Every morning when you open your eyes, the world is already prepared to assign you a role, a label, an identity. The busy mother, the employee who must finish the report, the one who's always there for others. All of these labels, if you don't consciously choose otherwise, will automatically run your day. And then you start living according to the templates others have pre-designed. Not because you're weak, but because you didn't define yourself in time before the world rushed in to define you. You may carry dozens of titles, hundreds of expectations on your shoulders. But there's one question more important than any business card. Who am I and how do I want to live? That question isn't as abstract as you think. It's a compass for every decision you make in the day. It helps you know what to pursue, what to let go. It protects you from unconscious comparison, from inner conflict, from waking up each morning and living like a stranger in your own life. The world is extremely skilled at manipulating you through speed. Everything is fast, urgent, pulling you in. No one has the patience to pause for a few minutes and ask a simple question. Who do I choose to be today? But because you don't ask it, you're easily dragged along, pulled by the news, by expectations, by fleeting emotions from those around you. And you start living not by design, but by reaction. You react to deadlines, you react to judgments, you react to what others think you should become. And little by little, you stop recognizing yourself. The difference in those who lead lies in this: they make a decision about their identity before they get out of bed. They don't wait for the world to tell them who they are today. They define it themselves, and then every action, every word, every reaction is calibrated to match that version. They don't wait for inspiration, they don't wait for validation. They act as if they already are the person they are building, because they understand behavior doesn't follow the past, it follows the identity you choose. If you want to live with intention, you must be willing to make a clear declaration about the person you are becoming. Not for anyone else, but for yourself. Every morning, take a minute to look in the mirror and say out loud, who am I choosing to be? Not just in terms of personality, but in terms of character, values, standards. And when you make that declaration, even silently, you're sending the first command to your brain, your emotions and your actions for the rest of the day. Don't wait until you've achieved something to claim your identity. You don't need accomplishments to define you, you just need a fully conscious choice. Because who you are is not created by circumstances, it's built from the repeated choices you make every morning. And the most powerful choice is always the first one. Which version of myself will I live by today? You can't control every variable, but you can absolutely control the mental state you bring into the world. And that state creates your style, your energy, your magnetism. No need for explanations, no need for proof. All it takes is stepping into the day with a clear identity and a non-negotiable value system. And everything else will begin to align around you. Throughout the previous sections, you've learned that the way you start your morning isn't just a personal routine, it's a system for programming your thoughts, emotions, and energy for your entire life. From waking up proactively instead of reactively, doing something hard to build resilience, building habits as the backbone of behavior, using the body to control the brain, writing your thoughts down, practicing gratitude, focusing on one single goal, and now defining your identity before the world does it for you. All of these are links that form an intentional operating system for how you live. Don't wait for life to get easier before you decide to change. Life won't become easier, but you can become stronger by waking up every morning and consciously reprogramming yourself. No need for flashiness, no need for complexity. You just need to choose one action, one thought, one commitment, and repeat it with awareness every day